everybody, how's it going? Stoudman coming back at you once again, and today I'm going to be talking to you about some Blu-rays that I picked up from SecondSpin. Not every day that I get a order from SecondSpin anymore, but I found a really good deal that I couldn't pass up. It was one of those rare deals that happens once in a lifetime. I think I might have even, or not once in a lifetime, but once in a blue moon. Once every year, I want to say, or so. But more lately, it's been like once every 6 months or so. So it's like, got to be on the lookout for that email that says 30 to 40% off. Because when that happens, it's like, go. It's one day only, go. If you can get 40% off of used Blu-rays like this, go. I recall mentioning this before, but what happened with this order originally was that for whatever reason my bank decided, wow, this guy's spending or trying to buy this stuff apparently from somebody in a different state. That's so weird. And they decided to cancel the order. Like every attempt I made to order through SecondSpin, they're just like, this seems fishy, right? And I'm just like, I appreciate the fact that they're trying to keep me safe, right? But at the same time, it's stupid to me because this is a company I've purchased from several times in the past. So, like, not just through other banks or something like that, no. Through this specific bank account, I have made purchases from this specific company several times. In the recent past, no less. At least a few this year alone. So it makes no sense to me that out of nowhere they suddenly were like, okay, this seems fishy. It's like, what do you mean it seems fishy? I've made orders with them before and nothing has happened. What are you talking about? It makes no sense at all. And their argument was, well, it's because it was an order taking place out of state and you don't live in that state. And I'm just like, yeah, I don't live in the state that a lot of the companies I purchase things from are from either, you know? Like, I purchase things from all across the country online, and you never have a problem with me doing that. Why do you have a problem with me doing it now? I'm purchasing it online. I don't know what the deal was, but after telling me that the order was going to be canceled and there was nothing I could do about it, they apparently did let one of the payments go through. So, since the payment went through, they sent me the order. So, awesome! Even though there were issues, I still got what I wanted. So it was like 38% off or something like that of all of their used Blu-rays, which are already a pretty decent price as it is, so you know, even better deal. I don't remember the exact prices on these, but I do remember I got some pretty good deals on them. I will do my best to, like, give you an idea of the amount that I paid for each one, but, yeah. Needless to say, some pretty good deals were had. First deal I got here was THX 1138, George Lucas's first film, I believe. And, yeah, first film from George Lucas in a director's cut. Yes, it's the director's cut of the movie. So this stars Robert Duvall, and it's one of those really weird post-apocalyptic dystopian future kind of movies. Honestly, in a way, because of when it was made, it feels very much inspired by stuff like 2001: A Space Odyssey, but you know, there's also some like weird, almost Mad Max kind of stuff in there. But yeah, this is very much like a sci-fi dystopian film, and it's excellent in very many ways. A lot of people would say it's boring as dirt. I would have said yes. Several years ago, I would have said yes, it's a very boring film. But watching it now, especially, it's another one of those things where it's like, with all the stuff that's going on in the world today, I like to watch movies that make me think about these kinds of things, right? About the socio-political commentaries that are in the movies, right? I like movies with socio-political commentary because of all the crap that's going on in the real world. So I can see, like, what artists were maybe trying to tell us several years ago. George Lucas obviously still with us, but you know, the kind of stuff that you can find in these works of art, these stories from the past, warning us of what could happen in the future, and seeing some parallels between what you're seeing today and what happened in this sci-fi movie. That's something that I really enjoy doing. And there were a few things in THX 1138 that it's like, if we're not already there yet, we could be soon. You know what I mean? So, very much enjoyed it actually because of that. And I recommend anybody who hasn't seen this in a while or has never seen it should actually check it out because, of course, George Lucas, got THX 1138. Pretty good stuff, pretty important stuff, pretty historic stuff if you think about it. And that one I think cost me like $6 to $7, something like that. But this one came to about $5, which is the price that I wanted to pay for it because for whatever reason, like it's out of print now and fetching at least a little bit more than $5. So I didn't save too much on it, but I got the price I wanted, I'll put it that way. Finally picked up Dreamcatcher here on Blu-ray. Love this movie. I think it's one of the best sci-fi movies from the era. And I know a lot of people look at this and say it's a pile of crap because I know a lot of people hated this movie. But there are a lot of things that, like, even to this day I reference from this movie. The SSDD stuff, the Mind Palace kind of stuff, which isn't necessarily a new thing, but it's definitely something that they referenced in this movie. And the actors in this movie were fantastic, and the concept, the plot is freaking awesome. It felt like a even more interesting version. It's like if Stephen King did a series of X-Files shows. You know what I mean? If they gave Stephen King the reins for like 3 or 4 X-Files episodes that all tied in together and were all one story, that's what Dreamcatcher feels like to me. And I love that. A lot of people would say, look at that and say, that sounds stupid, and that's probably why it's stupid. But I love it. I really love this movie, glad to have it in my collection. Next up is another movie that I have been trying to get in my collection for a while, but always been a little bit too expensive. And this one I think came to about $6. It was The Faculty. Now, the reason I didn't want to spend too much on this one to begin with was because, well, I don't think it's that good of a movie. I do enjoy it. I think it's pretty good. I think it's worth having in your collection. It's a nice horror movie, but I don't think it's like the best horror movie from the time. It's one of those from that same time period of like the early Final Destination movies and I Know What You Did Last Summer, so there were a lot of teen slasher flicks at the time, you know, Scream, stuff like that. But what gives this, like, there's something that gives this a little kick. Aside from the fact that, of course, it's directed by Robert Rodriguez, which is a pretty big thing right there. But there was something about this that made it a little more spooky. I like the atmospheric horror aspect to it. The fact that you don't necessarily figure out exactly what's going on until the end. I love movies that make you think about the things and make you think about what's going on and try to figure it out for yourself. I've always loved a mystery story, and I've always loved sci-fi, and I don't know if I've always loved horror, but I have definitely had a thing for horror for quite a while, for a long time in my life. So, you know, you combine my thing for horror with loving mystery and loving sci-fi stories, and it should be no secret why I enjoyed this. That said, I mean, there are elements of this where I felt like it wasn't as good as it could have been. It's definitely not a perfect film. I would say it's like a 7 out of 10. But it's a good movie, and it's something what I wanted to have in my collection. To be honest with you, if this came out from Scream Factory at some point, I'd probably double dip. Because I would love to have a Scream Factory version of this. I'm not going to lie. Even though it's not the best horror movie ever, probably worth having on Scream Factory. Yeah. Next up, I finally managed to pick up a movie I've been wanting to get in my collection for a while, and it came to $8, which is actually a little bit, just a tiny bit cheaper than it was during a recent sale. But I got this before that sale happened, so I had no idea about that at the time. Regardless, Tucker and Dale vs. Evil is now in my possession. It is now in my collection. And I couldn't be happier about that because this is one of the funniest movies I've ever seen. It's one of the best movies for horror fans that is out there. Like, as great as Cabin in the Woods is, I feel like this is even better. For all the right reasons. It's just like, it pokes fun and is a parody of horror movies. But it's not the stupid kind of parodies that you see like Scary Movie or whatever. It's not a haunted house. It's not that kind of parody movie, the typical parody movie. It's more the way they used to do parody movies, you know what I mean? There's actually a plot. There's actually depth. It's not just nothing but endless dad jokes, per se. It wouldn't even be dad jokes, really. Most of the jokes that they tell in those crappy parody movies are nothing but like sex jokes, and that's about it, And it's just like, that's funny, but can you tell another kind of joke maybe? Oh no, another dick joke? Cool. Like, it's serving the lowest common denominator, right? And I'm not gonna say this doesn't serve the lowest common denominator, but it's definitely geared at fans of the horror genre who know what horror movies look like, and they will understand all the references that are happening in this. They will understand all the things that are happening and why they're happening and what makes it funny. And only they typically would understand what makes it funny. Somebody who hasn't seen horror movies, doesn't like horror movies, probably wouldn't get this at all. I feel like this is a much better version of a parody film than most parody films out there. And absolutely love it. Glad to have it. And now we get into the Scream Factory titles. Yes, this is one of the big reasons that I wanted to do this order, and I was kind of upset at the idea that it wasn't going to go through because of my bank being stupid. But thankfully it did go through. I didn't have to deal with my bank being stupid because thanks to the 38% off, I think it was, from SecondSpin, I managed to get a bunch of Scream Factory titles that are usually $18 to $20 for like $11 to $12 each, which is just fantastic. And that is the price that I paid for all of these is about $11 to $12. It's not necessarily the biggest savings off of like one of their sale prices, but I think it's a pretty significant savings. I get some of these would go down to like $15, and that means I saved $3 or $4. Others probably wouldn't drop lower than $18 ever, and I saved $5 or $6 then. So I think it's a pretty good deal no matter how you spin it. Yes, all except for one do not have the slipcovers, but that's okay. For the price I paid, that's fine. I'm okay with it. I will survive. So the first thing I got here was Manhunter, which I recently watched through, I believe it was Amazon Prime, because I'd never seen it before. I had seen Red Dragon, but I'd never seen this one. People kept saying Red Dragon is a pile of crap. What you need to see is Manhunter. So went ahead and watched this one after recently having watched Silence of the Lambs from Criterion Collection. So obviously the Criterion Collection version of Silence of the Lambs is freaking phenomenal. But at the time I hadn't seen this one still. So I was like, I'm going to try and find this so I can watch the original, The Manhunter. And sure enough, I love the movie, and I feel like it's a way better movie than Red Dragon. Like, it's a night and day difference. I had no idea that comparably, even though I think Red Dragon is still an okay movie, It's just like, this one is so much better. It's hard to even compare. This one is so much better. So I knew then, after having seen it through like a digital means, that I had to have it in my collection. And sure enough, found it for, I think this one was one of the ones that was like $11. So $11, pretty good deal for Manhunter from Scream Factory. And this is the alternative artwork. I do enjoy that artwork, but to be fair, their new artwork for it is pretty cool too. I just want to go with the original artwork there because it's even cooler. Next up, I finally picked up Halloween 3 from Scream Factory. This is a double dip for me because I have the version from the studios as well. This one, of course, is better than that, and that's why I wanted to get it from Scream Factory, because there's more special features, and it's just a better print overall. And this is one of those movies that I watch pretty much every Halloween, so might as well have it in the best possible quality, because it's like a perennial favorite with me. Didn't used to be, because I can recall even back when I first started my YouTube channel, I had never seen this movie. It wasn't until I picked it up on DVD from a pawn shop several years ago that I first watched it. And ever since then, I have been hooked on this movie, to the point that I went and I got the Blu-ray from the studios, the regular Blu-ray edition, and now I have the Scream Factory edition. Very cool stuff. This is just a great spooky movie for Halloween. Granted, it doesn't really fit into the Halloween series per se. Although I do wonder what it would have looked like if they had gone through with the idea of making it an anthology series, telling a different story with each movie that didn't necessarily have Michael Myers in every single story and every single movie. You know what I mean? But that being said, even if this one is written out of the series per se, I mean, just call it Season of the Witch then. Season of the Witch is a great frickin' movie. It's a fantastic Halloween movie, and I love it, and you can't take it away. You can't break it down from... It can't be removed from Halloween for me. This is like a must-watch every year. Love it. Glad to finally have it in the best possible quality in my collection. Next up, this one was like $12. It was one of the more expensive ones, but I didn't mind because usually this one is more like $20 at the lowest. So I picked up Texas Chainsaw Massacre 2 here, Scream Factory version. This is a fantastic movie. Hadn't watched it until a few years ago with my friend Skinslip, who, like, at the time it told me it was his favorite Texas Chainsaw Massacre movie, and having watched it with him, yeah, I can see why, because this is really good. It's disturbing and creepy in all the right ways, and I love the setting in particular, and there's just so many crazy things. It's such a crazy movie. Just so much crap goes on in this movie. And in some ways, honestly, it kind of reminds me of Nothing But Trouble, which I believe came after this, obviously. But I had seen that one first. I saw that one when I was a kid. Surprise. Like, that's kind of weird. Speaking of movies that Scream Factory needs to bring to Blu-ray, Nothing But Trouble is perfect for Scream Factory. I'm just going to throw that out there. Would love to see a Scream Factory version of that movie, especially since it hasn't been brought to Blu-ray yet. So, a very cool idea, I think. But either way, Texas Chainsaw Massacre 2 is awesome. This is apparently the best transfer of the movie and has like the most special features. And just look at that list of special features. Holy crap. But there is a version from Arrow as well. I've thought about picking it up, but I think I'll just stick with Scream Factory. There are certain things that I'm just like, you know what? Get the American version. You don't need the Arrow version. This one's good too, and it's perhaps even a little bit better. But Arrow, I feel like, is very interchangeable with Scream Factory. You can get one or the other and be happy with both. Or get both. I don't know. I don't think I earn enough money, quite frankly, to buy both. To be worried about getting both versions for maybe a few different special features. It's not worth it to me. But anyways, I am happy to have this in my collection just because such a crazy movie. If you thought the first movie was crazy, if you thought the remakes were crazy, like, this is probably one of the craziest. This is just out there. Next up, I got Psycho 3, and that completes my Psycho collection on Blu-ray. Because I have no intention of getting Psycho 4. None whatsoever. Period. Not really a big fan of Psycho 4. I don't think it was a terrible movie, but I think I've talked about this in another video. It was, I think, the year before last where I did, it was the year before last where I did a series of Halloween videos talking about horror movies that I was watching for Halloween, and some of the horror movies that I was watching were the Psycho sequels. And I was watching them for the first time and doing a review of my first thoughts of the movies. And loved the second one, liked the third one. Fourth one, meh. You know what I mean? It's not terrible, it's not great. It's just kind of middling. 4 out of 10, 5 out of 10, 6 out of 10. Anywhere in there, in that range, I think is a fair score to give it. But I just wasn't sold on getting it on freaking Blu-ray, you know what I mean? I don't need it on Blu-ray, but I did want to get Psycho 2 and 3 because Scream Factory had the releases of both, and that is what I have done now. I have Psycho 2 on Blu-ray from Scream Factory, and now I have Psycho 3, so I can watch... I also have the first Psycho, by the way, so I can watch all 3 of my favorite Psycho movies back to back to back. Have a Psycho marathon if I want to, with the best Psycho movies in my estimation. Last but not least is, oddly enough, the only one that came with a slipcover, The Hallow. This might not be one you're familiar with because it's not a classic, but it is a modern cult film, I would say. It's a modern horror film, and I loved it. It's, I don't know, it's hard to describe. It's about a father, it's about a, not even just a father, it's about a family living basically like out in the woods. And of course it's like the spooky, there's something out in the woods trying to get them, and the father's trying to defend his family, and, you know, kind of creepy, spooky stuff going on. I watched this for the first time, I believe, on Amazon, or maybe not Amazon, no, I think it was Netflix. I watched this for the first time on Netflix. It might still be available for streaming from somewhere, I don't know for sure, but I really loved it, and I wanted to get it on Blu-ray as a result, and found out that, of course, Scream Factory had done a release. And oddly enough, this is one of their cheaper releases. It's not too expensive to find. You can find this for between like $8 and $15. So I managed to snag it here with slipcover for about $7. Not too bad a price, I think, especially considering it came with a slipcover. I didn't know it was going to come with a slipcover, but even without it, I would have been happy to pay $7 for it because it's a pretty good movie, and it's Scream Factory release. Can't go wrong with Scream Factory. So this is the slipcover artwork, which I'm not too big of a fan of, but I do like this original artwork. Look at that. Look at that. That's beautiful. That's just beautiful. So, yeah, really liked this movie, and glad to finally have it in my collection, and glad that I got it for such a good price. And again, you can get it for a good price too, because it's usually not that expensive. It's one of the cheaper Scream Factory titles you can get, and I think it's worth it. So, definitely recommend. And that will do it for this video. That is all that I picked up from SecondSpin. A lot of good stuff, I think. I mean, almost all of these are horror movies. If they're not horror, they're sci-fi, or both sci-fi and horror. And then half of them, I think fully half, more than half in fact, technically more than half of them are Screen Factory titles. Whenever you see sales like that from SecondSpin, where it's like, we're going to give you a significant chunk of percentage off of our regular prices on things, and you know that they have some of these Screen Factory titles or Criterion titles, like anything that is usually way too freaking expensive. That's the first thing you need to look for, because usually they'll have at least a few of them available. Not a whole lot, because usually they're just like, people don't send them in to trade those in, because those are worth a lot of money. And SecondSpin isn't going to give them a lot of money for those titles. So usually when they do get traded in through them, it's because the person didn't know what they had, didn't know the value of it. That usually doesn't happen with the collectors of things like Screen Factory or Criterion Collection, because they're usually pretty savvy, smart collectors who know the value of what they have. So, yeah. But in the off chance that it has happened, you always want to check and make sure, is it there, is it not there, and if it is there, is it going to be a really good price with this discount? So that's what I do, and that's how I got these awesome deals. So yeah, that's typically the first thing I try to look for, and glad that I found a lot of good stuff here. So yeah. Anyways, that'll do it for me today. Thanks for watching, guys. Catch you later. Peace.